These two guys are fighting over this woman. It all started in class, where the lecturer tells everyone to turn in their work early or lose points. After the lecturer leaves, Ini entered the classroom and he meets his friends, James and Natalie. They joke about him arriving just as class ends. Ini says he hates school. They laugh and then go to eat. Then we are introduced to Chris, and he is with Kyla, a new student he's helping. They're waiting for Kyla's roommate. Natalie arrives, and after introductions, she takes Kyla inside while Chris stays outside. Elsewhere, Ini goes home and sees his dad. Ini's dad asks where he's been, saying he's been there since last night. They don't get along. Ini lives alone, and his dad criticizes his bad grades, threatening not to support him. Ini says he doesn't need his help. Back with Chris, he puts on a lot of perfume. His friend asks why, and Chris says he's finally going to tell Kyla he loves her. His friend wishes him luck, and Chris goes to find Kyla. He sees her, but she gets a call with bad news. Later, she packs and cries. Chris comforts her, learning that her sponsor, who paid for her hostel, has died. Chris offers to help financially, but Kyla declines, saying he should keep his money. Ini and his friends, tired after school, talk about an upcoming party. They joke about how cheap the tickets are. Then Natalie picks up Ini's perfume and leave with it. Natalie later finds Kyla upset in bed and tries to cheer her up with the perfume. Chris and Kyla then go to the cafeteria, where Kyla eats. She tells him about her financial worries. Chris reassures her, offering his allowance, but Kyla refuses. Chris notices she's eating plain rice to save money and gets her some fish. When he leaves, two girls approach Kyla, and she moves closer, thinking they might help. Kyla tried selling the perfume her friend gave her for 10,000 naira, but the buyers haggled her down to 4,000 naira. Ini overheard and was shocked, pointing out that the perfume was worth 150,000 naira. He accused Kyla of stealing it, which made her back out of the deal. That night, Kyla was surprised when Ini knocked on her door. He was there to pick up Natalie for a party, and didn't know she shared a room with Kyla. Natalie introduced them, and Ini mentioned the perfume incident. Natalie was upset that Kyla tried to sell her gift, but Kyla explained. Ini said the perfume was his, leaving Kyla speechless. Ini went home and had a tense conversation with his dad, who wanted him to be his best man at his wedding. Ini refused and expressed his frustration about how his dad treated their family. Natalie was still mad at Kyla, but Kyla apologized, and they made up. The next day, Kyla met with Chris, who had bought party tickets. Kyla said they shouldn't go because they didn't have the money, and Chris agreed. Later, Natalie insisted on paying for a VVIP ticket for Kyla, who reluctantly accepted. While studying with Chris, Kyla told him she couldn't finish their session because she had to go to the party. Chris, feeling uncomfortable with the expensive gifts, expressed his frustration. Kyla received an important call and left, leaving Chris deep in thought. Chris's friend urged him to confess his feelings to Kyla. The next day, Chris convinced Kyla not to go to the party, warning her that the people there could be harmful. Kyla agreed. On the day of the party, Kyla faked a stomachache to avoid going, disappointing Natalie. Kyla continued saying, "And don't bother buying me a ticket, okay?" Natalie said, "I already bought the tickets a while ago. There's no way to change it now. It's like a loss already." Kyla was shocked. She tried to call Chris to tell him the tickets were already bought, and they had to go, but she couldn't reach him. Hey, if you're still watching, make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with all the latest Nigerian movie recaps from Nigeflix. Outside, a car pulled up, and James and Ini got out. They were waiting for Natalie to go to the party. Natalie arrived, and they hugged and greeted each other. Then, they noticed Kyla standing there in a long dress with sneakers. Everyone stared at her in surprise. Meanwhile, Chris was in class studying. After a while, he checked his phone and saw missed calls from Kyla. He tried calling her back several times, but her number was unreachable. He packed up his things and went to the hostel where she stayed. He looked inside, hoping to find someone who could call Kyla for him, but no luck. He waited outside. At the club, the place was lively. Kyla stepped outside for a moment, and Ini followed her. He was drunk and started teasing Kyla about the perfume. Kyla said, "Real men don't talk too much." Ini replied, "I'd rather be single than be in a relationship with you." Kyla turned and walked away. Much later, everyone returned to Ini's place. Kyla wanted to go back to the hostel. Natalie told her she couldn't go now and that they would sleep there. Natalie would sleep with her boyfriend James, and Kyla and Ini would figure out the other room. Kyla said she would sleep on the couch. The next morning, Chris was still at the gate. He had slept there, waiting for Kyla. Her phone was still unreachable. As Kyla woke up, she saw Ini next to her in bed. She panicked and started yelling, "How did I get to your room? Why are my clothes changed? Did you see me naked? Why did you change my clothes without my permission?" Ini said, "I just helped you. Anyway, Natalie brought you here and changed your clothes. Don't yell at me, I want to sleep." Later, they all went back to the hostel. Chris was still there. Kyla walked up to him. He asked, "Where were you?" Kyla couldn't answer. Chris got angry. Kyla said she went to the party. Chris was surprised. "The party we agreed you wouldn't go to? And you went?" Kyla said, "I know, I tried calling you many times, but you didn't answer." Chris asked, "So where did you sleep?" Kyla said, "I slept at Natalie's friend's place." Chris walked away angrily. Later, while Ini was sitting on a bench and talking on the phone, Chris approached him. Ini tried to avoid him, but Chris confronted him, saying, "I know you're trying to mess with Kyla. You can't steal my girl." Ini attempted to walk away, but Chris grabbed him. Ini warned, "Don't touch me again," and walked off. Ini then angrily confronted Kyla, telling her to make her boyfriend leave him alone. Kyla was shocked. Natalie tried to calm them down, asking what was going on. Ini said, "Her boyfriend attacked me." Kyla said, "I don't have a boyfriend." Natalie realized they were talking about Chris, and Kyla decided to go talk to him. Kyla found Chris and asked, "Why did you bother my friends?" Chris said, "I wanted to warn him to stay away from you." Kyla apologized for going to the party without him. Chris also apologized and promised to make things right with Ini. They hugged. Meanwhile, Ini talked to his mom, who advised him to focus on his studies and get a tutor. When the exam results came out, Kyla had all A's. Impressed, Ini asked her to tutor him, but she refused. Ini offered to pay her any amount, but Kyla still declined. A few days later, Ini approached her with a gift, but she left. Natalie later convinced Kyla to reconsider. Kyla eventually agreed to tutor Ini, but set strict conditions, including a fee of 100,000 naira per month. Ini agreed. They made a schedule, and Ini got Kyla's phone number. Chris arrived to pick her up, and they went to Chris's place for dinner. Chris said he didn't trust Ini, but Kyla assured him she could handle it. Ini struggled with every study, and Kyla had to start from scratch. Over time, they grew closer. Ini started opening up about his family issues and praised Kyla for her kindness. Later, Kyla brought food to Chris. When he asked where it came from, Kyla said Ini took her to a great restaurant. Chris refused to eat and left. His friends scolded him for not telling Kyla sooner that he loved her. Chris decided he would tell her that weekend. Meanwhile, Kyla kept receiving gifts from Ini. Natalie told Kyla about Ini's troubled family history, including his mom being kicked out by his dad, which led to Ini's anger issues and therapy. A few days later, Kyla went to see Chris. She asked him, "Is this how it's going to be? You don't answer my messages or calls?" He explained he was very busy and needed to study. She left. When she returned to the hostel, Ini showed up and complained about her not answering his messages and calls. Kyla said, "We see each other at school. Isn't that enough?" They both laughed. That night, Kyla thought about Ini, remembering the gifts and hugs. They started leaving school together and spent a lot of time studying until Ini fell asleep and Kyla playfully teased him. They shared meals and many stories. One day, Kyla told Ini she couldn't tutor him because her muscles were sore. Ini said, "Come to my place. I don't have muscle medicine, but it's a good place to relax. I'll cook your favorite meal." While talking, Chris appeared, pulled Kyla close, and tried to take her away. Ini tried to intervene, but eventually let them go. Chris demanded their schedule to monitor their sessions, but Kyla refused, saying Ini isn't as bad as you think. Chris left angrily. Later, Kyla had severe stomach pains. Ini came over and took care of her until she fell asleep. Shortly after, Natalie arrived. Ini and Kyla's bond grew, and they shared a laugh. The next day, Chris decided, "Today, I'm going to tell her that I love her." He rushed out. Meanwhile, Kyla was with Ini. Chris gathered his courage and arrived just as Kyla and Ini were about to kiss. Chris aggressively intervened, punching Ini and shouting, "Stay away from my girl!" Kyla stood in front of Ini and refused to leave with Chris. Chris confessed, "I love you, Kyla. I've always loved you." Ini walked away. Chris continued, "I've loved you for a long time. Please understand." Kyla couldn't respond and gathered her things. Chris tried to hold her back, but she pulled away, leaving Chris feeling lonelier than ever. That night, Kyla laughed a lot in her sleep. Her friend asked, "What's up?" The next day, Kyla met with Chris and told him she couldn't be in a relationship with him because they were too good of friends. Chris asked, "What about Ini?" Kyla said, "I have feelings for him." Chris stepped back, disappointed. After that, Kyla told Ini she had feelings for him but wanted to stay friends for now. They hugged. Days passed, and they remained friends. In their final year, Chris approached them and said, "The results are out, guys." Kyla ran to check, and Chris and Ini shook hands, showing they had forgiven each other. And that's the end of the Nigerian film Me or You. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the recap, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Nigeflix for more Nigerian movie recaps. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. See you in the next one.